This video is on a very serious topic of Tyre Nichols and police brutality. Before I get started, I want to point out how all the cable networks were carrying the beating as if it was the Super Bowl. It's very sick how they monetize black death, black pain, black destruction, black agony. I thought for a minute that CNN was going to start selling merch. I know a lot of black people who did not watch this just because they've seen the show before and they know how it ends. We have a serious problem in this country. It dates all the way back to the 20s and the 30s when black people were lynched and people showed up in droves to watch the spectacle. If after all of the media attention, all the consumption of this story, all the money that was generated, the hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars that have been generated off of this story, if there is not justice for Tyre Nichols, we deserve a zombie apocalypse. There is no ethics, there's only money. Black pain sells. Let's go. In an attempt to keep things tight, I'm gonna use some words that keep us on track. And those words will be 19, confrontation, naive, playing dumb, and home. 19. It took exactly 19 days for the police to not only launch a federal investigation, but for those officers to be fired, and then for them to be charged. 19, I never heard of such swift action taken in a case. Amazing how the wheels of justice start turning when the climate is right. When there are black people on the chopping block, they hit the nitro button in the car with, phew, that's what happened to the wheels of justice. They started turning over because we had 5 black officers here and they just moved quickly. And I want to make it very clear, I'm happy. I'm happy that the wheels have moved quickly. What we want is for the wheels to move quickly on all cases. I've covered stories for the last 10 years on police brutality, and this is the swiftest I've ever seen it carried out. I've seen it take years just to have them investigate a situation, just to take a look at it. So this is amazing how quickly it moved. And for people that don't understand why black folks might say, hey, this looks a little racist, you need to only know that this is unprecedented, the swiftness of this, the way this is happening. And in this particular case, racism is working for us. Don't get it twisted. We are happy that they threw them to the wolves. We want white officers and Latino officers and Asian officers also thrown to the wolves. So, what did we learn from this? We learned that these officers do not have the complexion for the protection from the collection. Shout out to Paul Mooney. Rest in peace. There will be no thin blue line to protect these officers. I see no GoFundMes. I see no Blue Lives Matter. I see no we stand with the blue. So for all you black men out there who want to become officers, and black women too, take a nice long hard look at this. You may bleed blue, but when it comes down to it, you are black. You are a black officer. And justice is coming for you. Confrontation. Now, I chose confrontation because that's what was written in the report. They said that Tyre Nichols and these 5 officers had a confrontation. You know, the definition of confrontation, I didn't know it meant one person being used as a human pinata, crying out for their mother. I didn't know that's what it meant. I thought it was 2 entities coming to clash. The 2 formidable foes of similar strength are coming together and they're about to get it on. But no, in the police report, this is classified as a confrontation. That somehow Tyre Nichols lost wind. A shortness of breath is how it was described. You know, they haven't done the autopsy yet, but I'm pretty sure they're going to find out that Tyre had brain damage. Tyre Nichols' breath wasn't shortened, his life was shortened by the brutality of those officers. These black officers need to understand, here's the bus, here are you. And rightly so. Once again, very happy that's happening. Want it to happen in all cases. Now, next word is naive. Naive is when you don't understand what's going on. You have no real call of reference. You are deluded. You're unaware. You're ignorant to what's happening. You're unsophisticated. You don't understand. Sort of like when you hear cops say, "Give me your hands," when they already have his wrist. Sort of like when a cop is yelling out, "Lay down," and he's already laying down. And you thought because the cop said lay down, that he's not laying down when you're looking at him lay down. And you're defending the officers by saying he should just listen. Not understanding that cops routinely, because they know they're being filmed, will say things and make audibles that don't make sense to distract from what's actually happening, that they're brutalizing someone. They're saying things like, "He's going for my gun," when you can see visibly he's not going for their gun, but it's what's being said to justify the actions on the tape. Naive. Naive would be looking at this police chief, Miss CJ, and I realize that she's part of the problem. Not only is she part of the problem, she put together the unit that has caused the brutality and then has the audacity to make the face, the Shirley Ralph face. Don't get me wrong, I love Shirley Ralph. She makes a Shirley Ralph face. Is that she doesn't understand how brutal those officers are when they were put together to do just that, be brutal. And she comes from another department, from Atlanta, the Red Dogs, who were similarly brutal. But because she's a black woman and she can put on the Shirley Ralph face one more time, she wants to avoid scrutiny. Naive would be the person that doesn't see through the facade. She is not only part of the problem, she's an orchestrator of the problem. She helped create the problem. Don't get me wrong, those officers chose to do what they did. But let's not act like they're operating within a vacuum. The Scorpion unit operates in this manner. My next word on the list is playing dumb. Playing dumb is what you would have to be doing when you hear an officer say, "I hope that they stop the shit out of someone." In that understanding, that's against constitutional rights. That's when one officer says this. The other officer says, "Huh? What?" And he says it again because he doesn't care. He has his body cam on. He says, "I repeat, I hope they stop his ass." Now that's the white officer who we've heard very little talk about. If you don't think it's a problem that we have officers that are hoping that other officers brutalize citizens, you are playing dumb. Because you know that's against constitutional rights. If you listen to the rhetoric of morons online who say cops used to always beat up people and it was okay, now everyone's woke. You are playing dumb. You enjoy this system of brutality that's been beset upon black people. Depending on the report that you use, black Americans are between 2.5 times more likely and 3.2 times more likely to be killed by cops. And white people are pulled over more often. White people deal with cops more often, but we get killed by them more often. So what does that tell you? You would have to be playing dumb not to realize that there's racism embedded in the system. How do you get an outcome like that if there's racism embedded in the system? Until it impacts you, it's not a problem. Now to those folks, particularly as white folks, who don't understand, how can this be race-related when there are black officers and they're beating a black man? What you must understand is that the very foundation of policing in America was embedded and built upon racism. That's how it came to be. That's what it is. The first policemen were slave catchers, returning black people to their masters. That was the first police. That's where it came from. What's a good analogy? All carpenters work with wood. Doesn't matter what color the carpenter is. If he's a carpenter, he works with wood. If you're a police officer, it doesn't matter what color you are, you're working with brutalizing black folks. Because that's what policing does. It brutalizes black folks. It's built on a legacy of brutalizing black folks. If you don't get that by now, after all we've seen with the advent of social media, you'll never get it. You're intentionally not getting it. Thus, you're playing dumb. Or you're just bigoted. It could be one or the other. Ain't a whole lot of options. We don't got time to play with you. It is what it is. Own it. Own it. The tragic case of Tyre Nichols is a stark reminder that black Americans are at risk regardless of the color of the officers. It's not about the color of the officer. It's the mentality of the officers. It's the purpose of the officers. Not the color of the officers. Those 5 police officers are black, but their blood is blue. They were operating under the guidelines and with the full backing of the Memphis Police Department. They didn't just get together and decide to go out and crash heads. It's what they do. They look like they were not operating in unison to you? Did it look like they were just making things up as they went along? You really believe that they've never done this before? Is that what you think? Or are you playing dumb? Our last word is home. People say, Tim Black, where was Tyre running to? Why was he running from the officers? He was running because he was trying to get home. When Tyre Nichols was last caught, he was only 200 feet from his mother's home. "200 feet. When he was yelling out, "Mom! Mom!" He thought it was possible she could hear him. Tyre Nichols was not able to make it home. He will never come back home. But we could try to reimagine policing in a way where more young black men can make it home. The problem is not getting better. It's getting worse. If we don't stand up to it, there will be more of these. The paramedics should also be investigated and also be charged. They did not render aid to Tyre Nichols. The white officer who was seen on camera wishing that Tyre Nichols was stomped to death, he should also be brought up on charges. I don't know what charges you give him, but you give him something. The police chief, C.J. Davis, she should also be brought up on charges. I don't know what charges. Figure it out. All should be held accountable. I have no doubt in my mind these officers will be convicted. But will there really be change? Will there really be change? That's the question. Because if we look at this like it's an isolated incident involving just these 5 officers, we overlooked the systemic issue. If we can't see the systemic issue at play here and realize what we're doing for policing ain't working, and if it results in this type of activity, we can't allow it in our society. My name is Tim Black. Share this video with a friend. That's your job. We need change.